What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Circle of Debate. I am your host, Chris Kennedy. I'm here with the DeLorean, Mike De Niro, and we have a very special guest, a childhood icon, the popular, the polarizing, love him or hate him. He's going to call it right down the middle, Mr. Bill Alfonso. Fonzie, thank you for coming on. We absolutely appreciate your time, and we cannot wait to get into what I consider the best era of pro wrestling, ECW originals. We want to get into your transition from reffing, which we are very up to date on, moving on over to that iconic arena.
Hell yeah. Thanks for having me on, Chris and Mike. I really appreciate it. I love podcast. Lets me talk about current events coming up, and lets me talk about the past and different items like my cool new whistle. Actually, it's not brand new.
Oh, that's awesome.
I can already hear it. It's embedded in my brain. Yeah. I can just hear that thing going off all night long. If we've earned your respect with that, we'd love to hear it at some point today. So that would be super welcomed. So basically, I want to get into me and Mike. We have only known each other for about 6 months. We've been on the podcast game for a couple of years. We bonded once we found out that we were both huge fans of what I consider original ECW era. Every time somebody brings up any of that content from like 96 to, I would say, 2000, we just can't stop talking about it. I want to get into what our earliest memories are of you specifically, which for me specifically was the Undertaker-John Gonzalez match at WrestleMania 9. That's my first memory of you, and I had to realize that retroactively. I was an ECW fan, and then I went back and watched that. I'm like, oh my God, there's Fonzie. That's wild. What was the transition like for you going from a referee in what I consider the cleanest era of pro wrestling ever, the next generation era, over to what is literally the exact opposite, the hardcore original ECW? And I think you even transitioned that character over a little bit of being the clean ref. You were trying to keep the hardcore out of ECW in your original transition from company to company.
Absolutely. It was a clean transition I had been a referee for a long time, and I met Paul Heyman years ago in the early 80s, and I worked with him before he became famous, and he was trying to break into business. Anyway, we did a little bit of stuff together in Florida, and of course, he went on to be a big star, and I had worked Florida wrestling, WCW for Ted Turner, and then went to Vince. By the way, I was on the first Monday Night Raw.
That's awesome.
I remember that. That's where Bobby Heenan was trying to break into the building several times throughout the night as different characters. I think one of them was like himself. One of them was like as a lady.
Like his grandmother or something.
Was that Hammerstein Ballroom? Was that the first Raw?
Grand Ballroom. Same building though.
Yeah. Same thing? Oh.
The second or third week there, we did a title switch. Marty Jannetty beat Shawn Michaels. I was a referee for the Continental title or whatever. That might have been the first night. I'm not sure, but anyway, I was on the first one. We're talking about the transition, how I switched over. So anyway, I get a phone call. I'm just finishing up in WWF, and I get a phone call from Paul Heyman. He knew I just finished my contract. He says, called me up, and I haven't talked to him in quite a while. He says, hey, Fonzie, I have this company in Philly. It's called ECW. I said, what the fuck's an ECW? I've only the big companies, Turner and Vince, I've showing my life, So he said, oh, this is a hardcore thing. I know you finish up with Vince. We'd like you to come in for 4 weeks and do this angle stuff, and then you're in and out. Would you do that? I said, certainly, I'll do that. So remember, I'm coming from Vince. I just left Vince like weeks. In fact, at the we were doing one live Monday Night Raw on Monday night, and then Tuesday and Wednesday we would tape the next Monday Night Raws. So I was still on Monday Night Raw when I came in to work for ECW. So I fly up to Philly, and I walk in the dressing room, and I'm dressed beautiful, and I walk. There's TAZZ, Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, all these guys. I said, damn, who the fuck? I don't know one guy in his dressing room,
Yeah.
But Paulie created all these big stars. You know, they're all big names now. And I fit right in. So Shane Douglas, the angle was Shane brought me in to be anti-ECW since I was just coming from Vince. Vince wants the doctor, his wife, and the 2 kids at ringside. ECW's clientele was 90% male from the age of 19 to 31. You know what I mean? Hardcore. They wanted blood and guts. So I was anti-ECW, and the character got over. I was really hated because I would stop in their thing, you know, stopping the audience wanted to fucking kill me. And it got over really good. And Paul Heyman asked me if I would stick around for a while. I ended up staying there. You know, I managed TAZZ and RVD and SABU. I ended up staying there almost 5 years. It was very cool. And I fit right in. It was so natural for me because I had been around the business, Mike and Chris, for, you know, over 25 years before I get this phone call in 95 from Paul Heyman to come in and do the managing thing. And I guess I was custom made for it because it worked.
For sure. Yeah. It definitely worked. My earliest memory of you is in that era. You were garnering so much heat with the crowd by being anti-ECW and trying to bring rules to ECW. Absolutely. And every week, I believe 911 would attempt to give you the choke slam, but you always got your way out of it.
I banned the choke slam.
You banned the choke slam.
Boy, wanted to kill me, but here's the funny thing, Mike, is the same people who would spit at me at ringside at the ECW arena in Philadelphia would buy me a cocktail at the Marriott after the show. Awesome. You know. So, and then later on, I became a beloved character. You know, we are characters there. For sure. And I enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, one thing that we always talk about is the loyalty of the ECW fan who I've been to only growing up on the West Coast and being of the pubescent age back then was only able to go to one live ECW event, and that was the Invasion over at the Grand Olympic Arena in Los Angeles that one time. And being able to say that I was a part of that crowd, even just the once, and growing up watching it on VHS tapes back when it finally hit TNN, which eventually became Spike TV, seeing what I don't consider them smarks, but they were the first intelligent crowd to know the difference between, well, this guy he's literally, we know that he's not an asshole. We know that he's not, you know, a character in real life, earning that respect from that crowd and knowing that the easiest, I think, way to garner heat in ECW was to make references to up north. We saw that when I know Shane Douglas would cut promos. My favorite promo of all time was versus TAZZ when he goes, TAZZ, bitch your mind. If you want an easy job, go up north or down south. But in ECW, this is my arena.
I remember that.
My favorite promo of all time. I can quote that thing probably verbatim. TAZZ, bitch, you're mine. And then later, I see almost, I don't want to say he borrowed from that character, but Steve Corino did the same thing. He was the anti-hardcore wrestler who would grab a chair, pretend he was going to use it, and just sit down and say, I'm not doing it. You have left an impact, like, I don't want to say pun intended, but on that crowd with the anti-hero, I would almost say. So earning the respect, like you mentioned, throwing the beer on you, and then buying you the beer. What was like, when did you start to notice, like, hey, man, like, this is where I belong?
Almost right away, because the locker room is like a family, you know. I just fit right in, and Paul Heyman and Todd Gordon, the founder of ECW, who's one of my best friends still. I talk to him weekly, not daily almost. And Sandman, he's one of my dear friends. I just saw those guys. I was in Philadelphia. We went out for a cheesesteak, and, you know, Philly cheesesteak famous, and Todd Gordon took me out for a fabulous dinner, me and my beautiful, tall, blonde Hungarian wife. So I talked to. So anyway, I fit right in, and I liked it. And I was good at my job, so everybody liked the boys. You know, I didn't mind getting my head bust open. You remember when I beat Beulah's ass? I almost went to death.
Oh, we're going to talk about that for sure.
Literally, I have about 5 questions, and that is number 3. So we're getting there.
Okay. Paul Heyman to name one of his favorite matches of all time in ECW, he's going to say Fonzie and Beulah were top 3.
Yeah, I can
deny it.
Yeah, I remember like the promos when I first started getting into you guys. And like I said, it was hard to do on the West Coast at the time because you had to have some elite version of cable just to get it streaming somehow.
Right. Years.
Yeah. The opening sequence for the TNN show, I think, featured just incredible going buck wild with the kendo stick on Francine. And I was 14, and I'm just like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. I'd never even considered intergender matches, let alone what you and Beulah put yourselves to. I don't know how much of what I've heard is true, and you can obviously confirm or deny the story of that match happening. Does that have anything to do with rumors of the Todd Gordon and yourself allegedly?
Not at all.
Is that just rumor mill?
Well,
you know where I'm going, so I can stop there.
Happened right in the midst of that when guys were jumping from ECW. Ted Turner, WCW was offering them big money to jump ship and go. And say you're making $100,000 in ECW, they offer you $500,000, $600,000 a year, fly you around the world. What would you do? You would
have families. You have to think about your family for sure.
They thought that I had something to do with it. Why would I be the middleman? Don't call Fonzie, just call Sandman. It doesn't make any sense. And they thought I was filtering guys out, and because I knew Kevin and I knew everybody there, and I had worked there and stuff. So it wasn't. There might have been a little bit of thought about it, but no, I wasn't a mold, and all that was just so coincidentally close together with the match.
So the rumor continuing, obviously that's not true, and we're asking because we don't know, and obviously we like that you were as loyal as you were. Booking the Beulah match was not the quote unquote punishment for that. Did that match just happen in the midst of whatever was going on between the two companies?
Exactly.
Oh, wow. That's good. That's crazy. Yeah. That match, obviously legendary. One of the first intergender matches I'd ever seen.
And we put on such a good match, and such we entertained the people that night so good. Even if I was going to get fired after it, they wouldn't have fired me because I performed like a king. I was 5.
Yeah. It was an absolute bloodbath for sure.
No, I mean, literally, I think I don't know who the medical clearance was on this, but they say that you lost 25% of your blood in this match. Some crazy number. Is that hyperbole?
I did bleed for 7 to 12 minutes from beginning to end. And then, paramedics backstage tried to stop it, and they couldn't. Finally, they put a big steel plate on my head and taped me up and rushed me to the emergency room. And I had doctors and nurses all over me, and I had lost so much blood. And but they took care of me. They ended up stitching me up, and I still got the big mark right here. If you can see it, it's a big slit.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah. I got something like that from not pro wrestling.
Never do it again. She called me perfect, and I just sliced my fucking head wide open, man.
Damn. Wow. I always wanted to ask you about that matchup. Have you ever had any wrestling training, like in-ring wrestling training? Because the stuff that you and Beulah were pulling off were not just I hit you, you hit me. There was hurricanranas in there. There was arm drags. You guys were pulling off some good wrestling moves. So was there ever any wrestling training in your past?
No, I did a little amateur wrestling in high school. But no, being around the wrestling business for so long, it was natural for me to do it. And if you really look at the match, you won't really see me do too many wrestling moves. I'll slam Beulah, but it's an awkward slam. I don't pick her up between the legs and slam her normal. I pick up in an awkward. Look at the match tonight after we get off the podcast, and you'll see we didn't do any leapfrogs, very little wrestling moves. And that thing that Beulah did to me, we did that by the luck of the Irish. We had talked about and pulled it off, but man, I was a little worried going into that because I've never done anything like that. I've been and took some chair shots and all kind of crazy shit like that, but I've never really had a good match, you know. But that was our agreement, not to do any wrestling stuff because we're two non-wrestlers.
Yeah, for sure.
For better entertainment.
Now, to take it back a little bit,
okay,
because we were like talking about your start in ECW and then we jumped over there. I just want to know, talk to me a little bit about the transition from going from referee to manager, because you were getting so much heat as a referee. It was a natural progression for you to become a manager. So how was that progression and that transition for you?
Well, I played it by ear mostly. You know, I'm asked to do these things and do promos and stuff. I would, you know, as a referee for all those years, I might have did 4 or 5 promos a year, like talking about how Ric Flair beat Barry Windham, or they wrestled for 60 minutes through and the title go. I might have done a few little promos like that, but never promos were like the ECW promos. And I was having problems doing them at first. And Tommy Dreamer and Paul Heyman come up to me and said, Fonzie, what's the problem? I said, man, I can't remember all these things to say and so on. They said, just treat it like a shoot. Treat it like it's real. Say, you know you're going to be at the ECW arena on December 17th. You know you're fighting TAZZ. You know it's going to be a barbed wire match. So once they told me that, I said, damn, all I got to do is tell the truth. And I'm kind of a hyper guy anyway. Naturally. Oh, beautiful blonde Hungarian wife. I'm so fucking hyper around her. So I added a little more to my real life character, and that made it. So that's what Fonzie was born. And then I was starting doing these good promos, and I was known as One Take Fonzie after a while.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Couldn't do a promo for nothing, and then after Dreamer and Paul Heyman had that talk with me and said, hey, treat it like a shoot. And that's what I did every time. Say, hey, Daddy, December 17th, I'm in Philadelphia. You know, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Ric Flair, a notorious quote was, in pro wrestling, always be yourself, just turned up to 11. In that evolution, in that evolution from ref to manager and having to finally have a voice, where did so much of that Fonzie character, the Mr. Right Down the Middle, Mr. 50-50, I mean, you can't not remember the hand chop. Like, was that just in the mere practicing, or did that just come out of just natural shoot ability?
Paul Heyman gave me the whistle the first night I was with TAZZ, right? So I was like embarrassed to blow the fucking whistle. Can I? As usually I don't cuss, but anyway, I was kind of embarrassed to blow the whistle, you know. And then, so the next week I came up and I forgot my whistle at home intentionally. And Paul Heyman says, Fonzie, where's your whistle? I said, oh, I left it at home. He said, that's your gimmick. That's your gimmick. So you know, now I'm a whistleblower. So, and sell toys, made sure I have some, you know, I sell my whistles at the show. But anyway, it was I played it by ear and everything just happened naturally. All those call it right down the middle, hey daddy, and all that stuff. The daddy came along because I couldn't remember everybody's names.
Bro, wow. You hacked it, you figured it out.
So I said, hey daddy, and then it's just stuck, and I started using it in promos and called him Beulah Daddy and everything. And all those phrases and stuff just came out of the blue, and they stuck. And calling it right down the middle. Now I'm known for that. So if I sign, like I just did a Comic-Con yesterday in Florida by Orlando, there was a couple thousand people that came through, and it was a comic book convention with Batman and Robin and Star Wars and all this. I was the only wrestling personality there. But the people who were wrestling fans came by my table and booth and took pictures. They were mimicking me. Hey, daddy, call it right down the middle. And they, you know, if you know wrestling, you know me. If you're not,
sure.
You only know Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, there's definitely 2 types of fans. It's the Hogan fans and then everybody else.
Right. Everybody knows Hogan. So let me give you, for instance, about Hogan. So if I'm at a party with my wife, she's a nurse, and we're at a party, and her doctor friends throw a party, and we're all there and one of the $1 million homes and stuff, and they're all beautiful people. And the conversation comes up and say, "Oh, what do you do for a living, Fonzie?" And I say, "Oh, I'm in sports entertainment." And they say, "Sports entertainment? What's that?" And I say one word. I can't say Dusty Rhodes or this guy or that guy. I say one word. They know what I'm talking about. I say, "Oh, Hulk Hogan." And they know I'm, into wrestling. I don't like to use the word wrestling. Vince took the word wrestling out of worldwide wrestling. He took it out of his worldwide entertainment.
Yeah. Much like he took wrestling out of the actual script and you're a superstar.
Yeah.
Not even a wrestler. Yeah.
Sort of in this Triple H era, we're seeing them lean against that. I think Kevin Owens is like, I'm a wrestler, and then AEW is also making an angle out of, are you a sports entertainer or a wrestler?
Right.
So there's a lot of counterculture, but that phrase, Paul, boys in ECW came up with that countercultural phrase.
Bad about wrestling, but it's got a stigma. It's a blue collar type thing back in the day, Now, like I said earlier, Vince wants a doctor, his wife, and the 2 kids at ringside. We don't want guys 19 to 36 years old at ringside. We want the whole family, so that it sounds better than wrestling. I agree that way, and Vince made it happen. Sports entertainment. I like the sound of that.
You mentioned the whistle, and I would be remiss if I don't tell you the story, but every single time I would watch ECW, and I would have my mom in another room, and she would hear the whistle. She would always scream out, "What the fuck is that whistle?" Like, because all you would hear is just like the whistle during the matchup. So you got some heel heat with my mom, at least. But
I'm sorry.
No, I always thought it was funny because I knew if I was watching an RVD match or a SABU match, I knew my mom was gonna say, "What the fuck is that whistle?" I'm like, "Mom, CCW."
Well, I look back at some of those tapes and pay-per-views and so on and the TV shows, and I think I was a little over I blew the whistle a little too much. I should have blew it on my entrance sometimes during the match, but not freaking if the match was 20 minutes, don't blow it for 12 minutes off and on. But I know what you're saying about the whistle, but I enjoyed it,
Yeah, it's what made you you. It was your thing. I loved it.
Yeah, that paired with like New Jack and NWA coming out to the music playing the entire time of the match. I think Public Enemy also may have had their music playing the entire time was unheard of. And it's like we go back, Mike and I, we've reviewed, old, obviously all old school, but we review the original pay-per-views and it's on the network or Peacock or whatever. And they've changed the music. So we know what should be playing, and it's surreal, but not in a good way. That non-copyright music is being played over these iconic matches.
Terrible, man.
Yeah.
You know what my favorite music was, and when they used to open up the show with the Pulp Fiction. Remember they did those Pulp
Fiction.
Oh yeah.
1-minute videos of Raven and Sandman and Bond. Man, that was great.
No, I always love the Pulp Fiction promos too. Like, especially before a pay-per-view, everybody cut the promo trying to get you to buy the pay-per-view, talk about their feud, and it would have the Pulp Fiction song in the background. I always thought that was cool.
That's one thing that was on point. Paul, I think Justin told me Paul picked everything or had to go through his approval for music, and he was just as much an icon in the soundtrack for ECW as the wrestling on TV.
I don't think anybody else could have did what Paul Heyman did if they would even had his thought process, but Paul Heyman loves the business, so smart about the business, and was right place at the right time, and the music, everything just fit, and that's why ECW is still like you guys are young. I get the Comic-Con I just did yesterday, Sunday. I had kids coming up to me, 19, 20 years old. "Oh, Fonzie, we love you." And I said, "Brother, what year were you born?" "Oh, 2003. I said, but they follow it. They're wrestling fans, and they follow it. Talk to people, and it's all over Peacock now. And so we created. It's got a cult-like following. Thank goodness, because I'm still working. Mike and Chris, if you believe this or not, I probably worked 45 weekends last year.
Wow.
That's awesome.
every weekend. This Friday I'm in Cleveland. Next week after that I'm in Miami Beach. Next week after that I'm in Panama. Next week after that I'm in Macon, and it goes on. I'm coming out to California. Chris, are you still in California?
Yeah, I'm in North Hollywood, so the LA basin.
Out to Los Angeles was a WrestleMania weekend. I got invited out there for 4 dates for that big Comic-Con thing or whatever they have, convention there.
Yeah.
Me and Sabu just signed a deal with somebody. And if you hear of anything else, because I'm there, let's see, the 31st, the 1st, and the 2nd, Chris.
Okay.
So I'm available before that or after that.
I got some ideas for you. Our boy Ivan, who set this interview up, we have connections to Wrestling Guy. We have the Wrestling Guy store, PCW Ultra, if you're willing to make an event appearance.
So I'll be there already, so there'll be no trans involved. Hotel.
Awesome.
We will absolutely make this happen off the air for sure.
And my talent fee is not outrageous. Like Van Damme gets 20 grand, for parents. He does. My talent fee is very doable. Very doable.
I love how passionate you still are about the business all these years later. That's awesome that you still are working that much.
I can't believe it, man. And it's not for me being the best referee in the country and going to Japan and refereeing the Fujinami Ric Flair match with 65,000 people in attendance. It's not because I was the greatest referee of all time. It's because of ECW. That's why I'm working.
Yeah, and I mean, it still holds up. You mentioned kids half my age are showing up, and they didn't. I don't want to say they don't feel the same about it because I don't know what their experiences are, but growing up, living the live version of that ECW, it still resonates. Like I hear just that original doom 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 wow, that theme song hits, and my blood just goes boom. It explodes. I want to stand up. I want to throw chairs at Tajiri or something like.
Well, I feel that I got to be a part of that, man.
Imagine that in the ring.
I'm so flattered that I got the phone call from Paul Heyman and said, "Hey, Poncho, would you be interested in coming up and doing this thing for ECW?" And I was there 5 years and made decent money. Actually, I made really good money for working Friday and Saturday. It was crazy, man. So imagine how I feel. You guys hear that music, I hear it too, and I go nuts. Damn, man, what a good.
That's awesome. So
go ahead. You got it.
So when you transitioned into being a manager, your first wrestler that you managed was TAZZ.
Correct.
How was that working with TAZZ, and also behind the scenes, did you and TAZZ get along?
We get along perfect.
Awesome.
Me and TAZZ. And remember, I didn't know most of these guys. I didn't know who TAZZ was. I never met TAZZ in my life. You remember, I just came from Vince and Turner's WCW. We get along perfect, man. And before we got put together, he had 2 or 3 different gimmicks, and they never really got over. He was Tasmania or Monkey Boy or whatever he was. But when I'm not saying I got him over, but he got himself over. But when he became TAZZ, he was his own self. Like I talked about earlier, like Ric Flair says, if you're a 7, turn into 11. TAZZ just turned it up, man. That was the real TAZZ, what you saw out there. He was a kind of a dick and a smart ass and a tough guy and a crown your nose and we get along perfect, man. TAZZ loved me. Still does.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, and we love that he's still working. I mean, it is a little.
Yes.
I know the TAZZ, like the professional entertaining TAZZ, the human suplex machine, like comes out with the towel, barely. That's it right there.
Oh man.
Just one of the I just want to say scariest characters in pro wrestling history, as far as I wouldn't want to obviously be on the wrong side of anything TAZZ's bad mood was a part of, but now he's one of what I consider the most entertaining and almost jovial commentators. And he was able to bridge that gap from after his wrestling career into his commentating career. And he'll make me laugh, but then I'll get a flashback of the real pissed off ornery, just gonna drop you on your fucking head, TAZZ. I'm just like,
drive your head through the mat.
Those TAZZ plexes were vicious.
Yes,
Yeah,
they were. Hey, sports entertainment, man, we fit right in. We're custom made. I was on Judge Mathis with Missy Hyatt. We had Judge Mathis, Judge Judy, and so on, those people. So they wanted me and Missy to come up and do one of their segments on the show. And the producer came up to me and says, Fonzie, man, the judge is pissed off because we did already 4 segments and they were the shits and the judges passed. I said, brother, we're entertainers. We know what to do. We're do our best, but don't worry, give us a chance. And we stole the show. The judge fell in love with us. In fact, he gave me his card and wanted Missy to call him after the show. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And we were great. We were great. You know how we at the end of course I thought was they awarded Missy the lawsuit. It was over a car, but it was pretty cool. Have you guys seen it? I want you guys to watch.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely saved it also on YouTube. I saw the clip.
Google it, yeah. So after the verdict and the judge walks off, we walk out and there's a guy going to interview you. Hey, Fonzie, what do you think about the verdict? And I said, well, I was a little one-sided because she has 2 big assets that I don't have. And speaking about her tits, and they aired that. I couldn't believe it. So it was pretty cool. So we fit right in. So we're back to TAZZ. He's a great entertainer. We're entertainers,
Yeah,
for sure.
And, I love seeing the generation. Like I love Hook. I'm a huge Hook fan. Seeing him come down through AEW with, the FTW belt, which had only ever been on TAZZ, unsanctioned, never even defended. While I think it was on the on Human Suplex Machine, and now his son Tyler's holding it and defending it. And I see so many shades of TAZZ. He's got the TAZZ mission. He is almost like a cross between, I don't want to say RVD and TAZZ, but like he's faster, I guess you could say. He's definitely more aerodynamic than his father, but he still does head and arm TAZZ plexes. Zakata Hajime doesn't speak on the mic at all. Like, I love that.
Marketable. This has turned out to. He's a good looking kid. He's got the Mark Spitz tall body. He's not big. He doesn't have to be. He's a good looking, appealing. The audience wants appealing. They don't want to see a big fat wrestler. They want to see a good kid out there, and he fits the bill, and he does really good in the ring. So congratulations to him. I'm happy for him. My name has come up a couple of times. You guys know a guy named QT Marshall?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
He's he works for AEW.
We're big
agents and
guys in the factory.
Yeah. And I was doing a show in Miami. 2 times he came up to me. I was doing a show in Miami, and he came up to me. I didn't know. He's introduced, hey, I'm QT Marshall. I'm in the office in AEW. And he says, your names came up in the dressing room twice in like a meeting. And, not the boys. In the office meeting. He says, just hold tight. So, and somebody told me just at the Comic-Con yesterday that they brought up my name, or somebody's mentioned me. One of the boys mentioned me on air, talking about me or something. So let's see what happens there. I'd love to go there and get a contract for a year or 2, but maybe I'm not marketable.
Awesome.
5 years old. They want young.
I would disagree with that.
Different for me. Just give me a chance and let me see if it works. Give me a chance there. I would love to go to AEW.
We would love
you
that.
You would fit right in too. I definitely think you would fit in.
And I wouldn't want to be with Tazz's son either. I would put me with somebody else against Tazz's son. Let me have my boy stretch Tazz's son. Something,
like that. Wow, that's writing itself.
Just think good thoughts, and hopefully something like that happens. So,
TK, if you're watching, which sometimes we think you are, give us a call. We want this to happen. I personally, I get very similar vibes, not to the same extreme, pun intended, as original ECW when I do watch ECW, because it does have that rawness to it. It is a little grittier. It's a little bit more shoot in its style, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So I get very similar vibes, especially with so much alumni going over there. Not only that we're either in ECW like TAZZ, but you can tell we're inspired by that style. Mox coming up through CCW, which in itself was literally a copied and pasted to ECW when it debuted.
I think they got to product. I mean, for what it is, you know what I mean? They got finances, they got TV, they got talent up the ass. I mean, everybody there is talented as hell.
Yeah.
So many guys out there. So I think they got a good product, man.
Yeah, I'm in love with it. This is the best time, one of the best eras in wrestling history, in my opinion. Especially with the product that's going on what I call the main roster and its improvements so far. And comparatively to the past couple of years where I've kind of only watched highlights but paid only attention to what's going on in AEW, like I think we're in like a second renaissance, if you will, with the two big American companies.
They got to figure out what they're doing. You know, they're add and subtract. If this don't work, they're doing remarkable for how long they've been around.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to them and the owners.
Yeah, and we would love to see you over there. One of those days, if we see that Instagram feed that says Bill Alfonso is elite, I'll mark out. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm still that 14-year-old kid waiting for that whistle.
And if I get a $500,000 contract and you guys call me to do a second podcast, I'll be
right. 100%.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
100%.
Definitely.
I get along with so many cool people. I'm well liked, and I got good stories, and our podcast is going great so far. So I'm entertaining.
Yeah,
most definitely.
And there's not too many guys left like me. You know, I'm 40-something years in the business, so we're all dying out, and you know, and I'm different because I've worked with everybody. Wrestlers are different because they've worked with I've worked with 7 matches every night for the last 40 years. You know, it's crazy.
That's a good point because you see a lot more as a referee.
And everywhere, Germany, anywhere you can say I've been.
And you see not the acceptance, but like the AEW crowd and their response to the legends in the early days of AEW, which was a weird sentence because they've only been around for 2 years. And I remember the first pay-per-view, but to say old school AEW, the positive response to legends like DDP, to Jake the Snake, to TAZZ, they will react that same way to you. There will be a holy shit moment for sure. When Regal came out, it was holy shit, which is a chant invented by ECW. And we think you would probably get the biggest holy shit chant of them all if that were to happen.
I would like this to happen if they would bring me in and do it in Philadelphia.
Oh God,
yeah,
that'll be perfect.
That's something that I pay attention to is when there's a rumor that something's going to happen, like a debut or a return or a title change. I look at the venue, like with the Acclaimed. I'll look at like, oh, they have a title match in Staten Island or like New York. I'm like, oh, they're from there. They're definitely something definitely is going to happen in their favor in their hometown. MJF, Long Island, same thing. CM Punk, Chicago, like Bill Alfonso in Philly. If there's a show in Philly and you're not busy that night somewhere else, my eyes and ears are going to be open for sure.
All right, Daddy. All right, let's change the subject.
Well, I know you were just talking about being everywhere, and earlier you talked about working on the first ever Monday Night Raw in the Manhattan Center. In 1997, ECW invaded Monday Night Raw and went back to was in the Manhattan Center when ECW invaded Monday Night Raw. What was that like going back to the Manhattan Center, but this time under the ECW banner?
It was pretty cool, man, to be invited to get to do that. Can you imagine, being in a position where they want us to come do an angle with WWF and WWE? It was great, man. It was exciting. And I was right in the middle of it.
And with, I think, Lawler at the helm of the WWF side of that.
Yes.
Which, I mean, in himself, he could work any company and be just a heat magnet and also loved at the same time. He even, I think, during that era did go over to ECW under the WWF banner and try to start some shit, which was unheard of at the time. There was no forbidden door talks at all.
Jerry. Me, Van Dam, SABU, backed them up. It was great. I was wearing the WWF Monday Night Raw hat, red hat with my outfit and stuff with the guys. Oh, yeah, we took it. It was strong, man.
Yeah, WrestlePalooza 97. I remember that. That was Tommy Dreamer versus Raven. And then that was like their last match before Raven went to WCW. Tommy Dreamer finally wins. Lights go out. There's Van Dam. There's SABU. There's you. And then there's Jerry the King Lawler, which is like the ultimate like what's this blasphemous? The guy who's saying extremely crappy wrestling is in the ECW arena.
Yeah.
And then like, I remember the line, the bingo hall ought to be built out of toilet paper because there's nothing in it but shit. Like,
right.
God, man, the heat that he was getting that night was insane.
It was pretty cool to be a part of that.
But when you guys had the WWE invasion in '97, what was the perception in the locker room? Like, how were you guys treated in the locker room by the WWF wrestlers? Was it like us against them, or is it like, hey, come on in, let's make money together?
Everybody knew each other. We all know each other by that point. You know what I mean? It was pretty damn cool. And we, we're talking to the guys. Hey, we're gonna do this. What do you think about this move or that? It was just normal as hell. Normal as hell. There's no animosity at all.
That's awesome.
On our end or their end. Vince loved it.
I love hearing that because that's a good segue because of my experience at that ECW show at the Grand Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles, and I think like 2000 maybe.
Yeah.
Notorious, and I worked for them for a little bit, even though I shouldn't have because I was underage. But XPW tried to build their name off of that event. They tried to pull a shoot invasion angle. And everybody knew that they were going to do it because that was technically their home turf. They had been wrestling out of there for a couple of years, and they were very open about that.
It backfired on them.
Oh, it absolutely
did it ever.
I watched in the parking lot RVD get some shots on like Damian Steele or Supreme. I forget who it was, but it didn't work in their favor, especially because they were outnumbered. Well, did you guys know going into that, like some shit was going to go down and be ready?
Excuse me?
Did you guys know going into that some shit was going to happen and that you were prepared, or was it completely surprised the day of?
Know anything about it? A half hour before, the guys came and sat at ringside. A bunch of the guests bought tickets. They were all at ringside, about 6 or 8 of them, big guys. Then they started talking smack, and all our guys came running out of the dressing room and chased them out to the parking lot down the street.
I was watching. I was in line. I was literally watching it happen because I worked for a company called Rev Pro at the time, and I was 16 years old. But we were doing our own invasion within XPW where the indie scene would come in and the jobbers were trying to take over XPW. So I'm like some kid in a lucha mask backstage watching my heroes take out the company I'm working for. It was the most surreal thing I'd ever done. I'm like, where am I right now? Why am I'm hanging out next to a porn star in RVD? I'm 16 years old. Like, I didn't know what life was at the time. And to be able to talk about this story with someone who was in the literal firefight of it all, like, it's just...
That's not normal for guys to do that without it being a work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I find it in retrospect, and even at the time, ultra disrespectful by XPW. Like, they knew what they were doing. They were trying to build their name off the backs of the guys who had built that style of wrestling.
They could have called Paul Heyman and said, hey, Paul, we're with this company here. You mind if we come in and do a little something with you or put you guys over, whatever? And then Paul might have worked with them a little bit. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Rob Black had it in him to do something friendly like that.
Yeah.
Going back to the invasion on WWF in '97, that was leading up and building up to the very first pay-per-view, Barely Legal. What's your memories of just getting on pay-per-view and the part you played? Because you played such a huge part in that show. The biggest match that ECW could put on at that time was Sabu versus TAZZ, and you were in the middle of it. Not only were you coming out with TAZZ, but then in the end, you betrayed TAZZ, joined Sabu and Van Dam. So you played a big part of Barely Legal. So talk to me about all that.
Well, I had been on so many pay-per-views already throughout my whole career, WCW, and of course with Vince and WrestleManias and WrestleMania, The Undertaker, Giant Gonzalez,
Cool.
Some pretty cool stuff. So, pay-per-views weren't new to me, but we were all excited because we were one of the first small companies to start, to do a pay-per-view. We were overexcited, man. And we all hoped it did good, and it did well. And it got better as we went along. We got better buy rates. We got better viewers. The viewing went up and stuff. It was pretty cool to be a part of that. And again, like you said, I was flattered to Paul Heyman have me in that spot. you know, in the main event with TAZZ, and then switch on TAZZ and go with Sabu and Van Dam and those guys. Man, they had a lot of faith in me, and it worked out great. TAZZ didn't need me anymore. He was a great talker. He didn't need me at all. And the thing between Van Dam and RVD and Sabu, I fit right in there because Sabu didn't really talk at all. And, and Mr.
I don't think to this day I've ever heard him speak. I know he has shoot interviews. I almost don't watch them because I don't want to know what he sounds like.
Kills the aura, yeah.
That character is so legendary.
So I fit right in, and it was a good move by Paul Heyman. Gave me another break, gave me another 4 years there. You know, I was supposed to come in for 4 weeks. Remember at the beginning of the podcast, we talked about it. I was supposed to come in for 4 weeks, get choke slammed by 911, and I was done. But business took off, and I was in the right place at the right time, and it continued. And here we are talking about it 25 years later.
Yeah,
for sure.
One thing I loved about when you took over managing RVD and Sabu was the dynamic in the character, the storyline within itself, the dynamic between you three. You were Mr. 50-50, call it right down the middle, but you had two guys who didn't get along. You were kind of the glue, but you were also kind of the opposite of the glue, the separator, who almost within if they ever had a match together, whether versus or a tag, you would side with one or the other on the whim. Like, I remember one time, I think it was definitely RVD versus Sabu, you would hold the chair up, which I loved, for the Van Daminator.
Right.
Which makes you one of the most iconic managers of all time, was your ability to interject yourself into the match. You would hold the chair up for RVD. He would go for the Van Daminator. You move the chair, and you were like, I'm not holding the chair. I'm Mr. Right down the middle, 50-50, because no matter who wins, I win. Like, endless possibilities with that style of gimmick. Who came up with the concept of you holding chairs, interjecting in the match, like the spot? Was that,
Just progressed. We used to we called it a hot potato spot. Me and Van Dam, he would throw the chair to me. I would throw it back to him. He would throw it to this guy, back to me, and I would throw it to Rhino, and then Van Dam do the super kick and take him out. We called it the hot potato. You know, the chair was so high, we just kept throwing it around. It worked out. And then I said, Van Dam, when he came up with the concept to do the Van Dam thing from coast to coast, from one ring.
Which is what it's called. It's not, no, it's the Van Terminator.
Van Terminator, yeah.
No disrespect to Shane McMahon. We all know it's the Van Terminator.
Yeah.
Not the coast to coast.
Upside down and hold the chair over the guy. Where your top leg is hooked on the top rope and you're hanging upside down.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. I do that all the time. I just did that not too long ago with some people. I work for a company called AIW. There this Saturday, John Thorne. They've been around for 17 years or so. They have a great show. They're having and they're streaming. Oh, you know what's good about it? AIW, they're doing Hell on Earth 17. It's the longest running annual event for them to do. They've been doing it 17 years. So the big news for them, the big news for a lot of these smaller companies, I'm not saying AIW is a smaller company, but a lot of small companies that I work for, the indie shows, as we call them, are signing up with Fight Plus TV, where you can pay $4.99 and watch all these different promotions, put these spectacular shows on. And I'm on different shows like CCW out of Miami. They're on Fight TV. John Thorne, AIW, signed a deal. We're on Fight TV there. So it'll be streaming live this weekend on Fight TV. So that's big news. That's good news for us. And good news for the rest of the people who do that. Want to watch? You know, if you can't attend it, you pay $4.99 and you watch endless amounts of indie shows and pretty much pretty good stuff. I haven't been to many shows where I say, damn, this is a shits. You know what I mean? Pretty are coming up. You know, the virus killed everybody. Now I go to a show. Like I'll go to a show in Miami. There'll be 500 to 700, 800 people there. That's a hell of little house for Indy. I'll go up this Friday, November 25th, for Hell on Earth 17 for AIW. There'll be 5, 6, 7, 800 people there. You know, that's pretty damn cool.
It's a good house, yeah.
Yeah, hell of a house for indie shows. And now there is a Fight Plus is where it's at, man.
For sure.
Which I am. I love the business just like you guys do. I'm probably going to end up getting that Fight Plus and watching all this stuff.
Oh, it's definitely worth it. It is definitely worth it. There's so much good content on Fight Plus. Like $4.99, you can't beat that price for sure.
Exactly. So check out that CCW. I think it comes on Tuesdays. Tuesday.
I'll definitely check that out for sure.
Championship Wrestling, CCW. And I'm a big part of there. I manage their top star. I did manage both of their top stars, and now I switch and just manage one. He's a big giant, you know, wears a mask. He's a Brazilian giant. He's not 7'7". He's not, you know, but he's a big kid, and I do promos. Hey, Daddy, you know what? We call him the giant because he was that big when he was 12 years old. He was knocking grown men out since 12 years old, you know?
Yeah.
So but I manage him, and we're on Fight.
That's really cool. No, I definitely want to check out CCW. You said Tuesdays it's on?
I believe so, yeah. Every Tuesday they have a show on.
I'll definitely check that out for sure.
Look at CCW. They'll give you all the info.
We'll provide links to whatever you got going on, promotional material, links to anything you got. We absolutely provide those. So people can definitely check out Fonzie wherever he's at in the world. One thing I wanted to bring up, and
I post all my social media. I got, you know, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all that. I'm not super savvy like you guys. You guys are high tech. I got to work to it, but my beautiful, tall, blonde Hungarian wife helps me out a lot.
I got one of those too. She's not tall, but she's definitely half of those things.
But yeah, we'll definitely promote all your links for sure.
Thanks, man. So I do a pretty good job, and you can get a hold of me. Anybody wants interested in booking me on one of the shows, I get it all the time. Like the guy from the Comic-Con found me on my, you know, he messaged me a message. Hey, Fonzie, are you interested? We're doing this. And I said, message me your number. And I called him, and now we're friends. And I just got a nice payday and entertained the hell out of his people. And he was happy as hell that I was there at the event. So that social media is great, man.
Yeah, sure. Like I am old enough to, and I think Mike is as well. I mean, I'm much older than Mike. We didn't have the internet during the ECW days, so I had to find VHS tapes from friends who had cable.
Feinstein.
Yeah, our video was the main distributor.
Yeah, exactly. So they would make copies of tapes, and I would record over tapes that I had VHS for the kids involved as a black box that goes into a giant device, and it was almost paraphernalia to get a hold of this stuff. When I found out you guys were going national syndication on TNN, did you guys what was the reaction to the boys in the back, the girls in the back as well? Was there a party? Was it like high fives all around? We're finally going national. We've made it.
Another step to being successful. And at us 25 years later, we're still talking about ECW. This hasn't been around since 2000. Can you believe it? It's been off the air for 22 years, but now it's peaking out. Viewers and Peacock and so on. It was great, Daddy.
Talking about that, been around since the early 2000s, and I guess you would say the buyout and moving the company to the main roster.
Yeah,
we know you were in that one night stand event, which I love those one-offs. There was a TNA one that I wasn't too thrilled on. Something just wasn't there for me. But was there talks of bringing you back under SABU or RVD? Because I know they made it fairly large on the main roster after that eventual invasion.
For Vince, or what company was that?
For Vince. So after the original ECW, and then everyone went to the main roster under that rebranding. Were there conversations you guys had with you to bring you in for any capacity?
There was, but for some reason it never happen. I made a few differences, but But I never had a contract. Believe me, I came close to signing one, but for some reason it fell through. I think it was a budget issue. I'm not sure. Vince got millions of dollars, but
I honestly think it's never a budget issue with those guys.
That's why I left
sure.
because the business was dropped a little bit. So I was one of the last referees they hired. And I'll tell you that story. You know, I was with Giant Gonzalez, the tallest athlete on the planet, and I got us in WWF. But anyway, I was one of the last referees they hired. So when they cut the roster down a little bit, they gave me a severance package, beautiful, and let me go because the business was down a little bit. And they said, hey, when it picks back up, of course, we'll bring you right back in. Then I went to ECW, and you know that story.
Yeah.
Sure. How would you compare the reunion shows? Like, how would you compare ECW One Night Stand to TNA's Hardcore Justice show that they did for the TNA reunion? Well, the ECW reunion.
You can't compare anything with ECW. It was its own entity, its own animal, and other companies like that. I forget the girl's name.
Dixie Carter.
Yeah, Dixie Carter, you know, they had good intentions, but you can't make it happen twice. What's that old saying? Once is enough.
Yeah, that's sort of how I felt when I brought it up. I have the DVD somewhere, and I loved watching it. It just something felt
right.
By the boys, it just felt a little soulless, a little contrived for sure.
It was not ECW. That's why you didn't like it.
Yeah,
even though I did love the fact that you were in the main event. And you played a big role once again with RVD and Sabu all these years later when they faced off against each other, because it was back to the old ECW style where you were managing both guys in the same match.
Speaking of those two guys, December 17th, you might have heard this. Mike, you're in New York. ECW Arena, December 17th. Rob Feinstein, our videos, is putting on a Comic-Con and a show that night, and everybody, all the superstars from ECW, including me, Van Dam and Sabu, Sandman, the Dudley Boys, Francine, everybody who's alive or is going to be on that show.
I'll definitely be there for sure.
Sold out already. It sold out like the first.
You gotta hit Fonzie for that backstage pass, buddy.
I can get you in.
Yeah, all right, awesome. We'll definitely talk because that's like unmissable for me. I would love to be there.
I logged your name in there in my phone. So
great, thank you.
You call me when it's getting close, and I don't think there'll be a big problem. You know, you pick me up at the hotel at 9 o'clock and take me to you, my driver. Of course, I'll get you in.
Sounds good. That sounds like a gret deal.
I'll be at the airport. You pick me up there, and at 9 o'clock we go. The event thing, I got to be there at 10. You walking right in with me. They may have you do something, go get sandwiches or help put up a table or whatever. But
I wouldn't mind.
You're going to be a young boy for Bill Alfonso, my friend.
Yeah.
Hey, that sounds like an honor to me.
Hey, thanks, Mike. So that'd be an easy win. You know, I could just ask for a ticket, but hey, the guy selling tickets for $100 or whatever, I don't want to, you know, he's already paying me a good talent fee and doing this and that for me. I don't want to overextend myself. So,
of course, yeah.
You to come in with me as my young boy.
Sounds good.
So we talked about the past of ECW with Bill Alfonso. We want to get into now what you have going on now. What's in the future for Fonzie? Things you want to promote, appearances. Obviously, we're going to drop links, but I want you to tell the people where can they go see Mr. Right Down the Middle.
Well, I'm company CCW out of South Florida. We run Hialeah, which is right next to Miami. And go to their website, CCW. Check them out. I work for them twice a month. Every first Saturday of the month, I'm in Miami and Hialeah doing a show for them, and they're doing really well. This Friday, I'm in AIW in Cleveland. I manage Matthew Justice, who's badass, who you might have seen an Invasion, Lights Off, Lights On, and GCW.
Yeah, he's a big player in GCW.
A couple months ago, where me and Sabu came in and pie-faced somebody. And
yeah.
So I manage Matthew Justice. He's badass. So I'm just doing shows all around the country. You can, follow me on Twitter or Instagram or check my Facebook out. I usually all of my appearances that I'm going to make on there, and you can go on there and order some stuff. I don't sell a lot of stuff, but I do like, people seem to like these whistles. I sell the hell out of these things.
I definitely want to whistle for sure.
Oh,
I'm going to blow it so my mom can hear it too.
Dude, she's gonna be triggered, bro. She's gonna be like, "What the fuck?"
This is for the whistleblower. Yeah, I'll do that. And then I got T-shirts, different stuff, but you know, and then I got the like ECW jackets, are pretty damn cool.
God damn it, I want one of those.
Awesome.
Can you see that? And then I get the RVD, Fonzie, Sabu, Extreme Hardcore Tour. That is tour. That's pretty cool. And I make a couple of these and sell them. People like them. Sell my hats and stuff like that. But you know, just get a hold of me online or come to one of the shows.
We can definitely do that. We'll drop the links to all your socials in the comment section. Before we go, this is a question I think I've asked, I forget who before, but I want to ask you.
Okay.
In a dream scenario, let's just say you're fantasy booking yourself. Okay. What company and what wrestler would you put yourself into if you could pick anywhere in the world with any wrestler? Would you do a reunion? Would you come back with RVD and like the main roster? What would you love to see?
I would like to sign a contract with AEW and see if I would fit in there, see if I'm marketable, which you guys think I'm able, might be able to pull it off. But you got to remember, they want the doctor, the wife, and the two kids at ringside, just like Vince does. Am I marketable at 65 years old with gray hair? I might get a pop for a couple of minutes. Oh, there's Fonzie. It might wear off pretty quick, but I would like to sign a contract and see if I could pull it off and get one more run, a 1-year contract with AEW. I would love that. And I promise I would bust my ass to do that.
We know you would. We would both love that as well. That would be, I mean, and the idea you had to go against TAZZ, to go against Team TAZZ, like maybe you could, I'm throwing this out there for Tony.
Yeah.
Manage Ricky Starks, go against Will Hobbs, go against Brian Cage, former TAZZ members.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That is so cool.
I love that.
That's Team TAZZ.
That's a Japanese.
The original Team TAZZ.
That's a Japanese card.
Yeah,
that is so awesome.
I forget his name. Chris Carrioso? What was TAZZ's cousin's name?
Chris Chetty.
Yeah, Chris Chetty.
Yeah. Was he one of the people in that picture? I couldn't see it very well.
He damn sure is.
Hell yeah. I knew it.
Yeah. He's the one on the far right. If you're looking at the picture, the one on the far right.
Yeah, that's what made me bring that up. I love Chetty.
Right where my thumb's at. Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
That is so cool.
Let me show you some other quick stuff. Some other quick pictures. I'm not sure because I'm trying to point at this. Ric Flair, and there's the belt right there.
Oh wow. The 10 pounds of gold.
Of course, it's a replica. Of course it is. But that's the belt I'm holding up. There's Ric Flair. There's Dusty. There's the Masked Assassin, Jody Hamilton. That's Nick Patrick's dad.
Oh wow.
There's Andre. There's Andre. There's Bob Backlund. There's me and Todd Gordon. You wouldn't know this guy. His name was Mike Davis. Look at a young Jake Roberts. That's before he was Jake the Snake. And that's
I just found out like 2 nights ago. They made a reference on AEW. I think TAZZ made the reference. Grizzly Smith was Jake's dad.
Jake's dad, yep.
I didn't know that. I was like, why are they making a Grizzly Smith reference? I'm like, oh my God, that's Jake's dad. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's he sure is. And I work with Grizzly Smith. He was an agent when I went to work for Jim Crockett in Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. He was an agent, and also he worked for WWF when I was there.
Wow.
Hey, we can talk about RVD's CBD new product. It's a sensational
it's good
product.
stuff.
No, he's done a lot of research. He doesn't. He won't put his name on anything off. And I like the rub. I use the rub all the time. And go to rvdcbd.com and punch in. I get a code. Put Fonzie in, and you get a big discount on all your stuff. And we ship anywhere in the country. It's totally legal and totally a great product. And of course, he's a big pot smoker. You know, we were in High Times magazine. Can you see that pic?
I remember that. Yeah.
I actually have that framed as well.
Okay, very cool. It was me and Dusty, Andre. I'm just running through some cool pictures before we go off the air. WrestleMania 9, and there's all the WrestleManias. I'm in that book somewhere. Let's see, I got tons of magazines and stuff, but all right, boys, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. You are more than welcomed when everyone come back on. You're always welcomed on this show. Thank you so much.
Hey, don't wrap me up. I can talk all night long. Don't give me no fucking wrap up. About the new plane crash with superstar Billy Graham and Kevin Sullivan. We didn't talk about Barry Windham getting shot in the leg 2 hours before you had to wrestle Harley Race 60 minutes. We didn't talk about me running over an alligator going 100 miles an hour with Muda in the car. And,
wow.
They all
we were on your clock, so whatever you want to do, we got you. We got you.
Got a lot of story. We haven't even touched the surface yet, kid.
Cool. Let's go.
No, that's awesome for sure.
So anytime you guys want me on, Mike, you got my number.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if we can make it happen, Daddy. I love being just kidding when I said don't wrap me up.
No, I know.
No, you're all good. We need a part 2. We need a part 2 with you. Absolutely.
We definitely need a part 2. And if we would have the honor, would you please give us just one whistle blow?
All right, I'm going to blow my whistle. My tall, blonde, beautiful Hungarian wife is going to freak out because she knows I'm doing a podcast, and I usually blow it all the time, but she doesn't. So what I'm going to do is once I blow my whistle, I'm off the air, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, Daddy. Hey, thanks, guys, for having me on your show. The podcast is very cool. I'm going to watch the whole thing back. Chris, congratulations. And Mike, congratulations on doing a good job and loving the business I do, and looking forward to meeting you guys. Maybe you, Mike, in December 17th in Philadelphia. And Chris, I'll see you WrestleMania weekend.
WrestleMania weekend. Sure. I'm into it. I'll be here. I appreciate that. This is been an absolute humble and an honor to have you on. So, my favorite man.
Make sure you get my phone number from Mike. He's got it.
For sure.
Yeah, I definitely will. Appreciate that. Cool.
Thank you so much again.
Text me and say, hey, this is Podcast Chris, and then I'll log your number in.
Cool. I can absolutely do that. I look forward to it. Look forward to having you back.
The manager champions calling right down the middle on a super podcast, Daddy. Good night, everybody.